Hey guys, Ogalbina here, bringing you guys my APA Little Cup Legends tournament run. This is going to be a really long video, but it's going to just encapsulate my entire run throughout the tour. We're going to go over my team, we're going to go over my pools games, and obviously my brackets. I probably wouldn't upload this if I didn't make it out of pools. So obviously you'll see by the video length. This is going to be a long one, so definitely grab a stack, sit back, and enjoy. This is a really fun run. I really enjoy my team, and I had a lot of fun playing in this tournament. But before we jump into it and really get into the swing of things, I do want to mention only about half of you guys that are watching the videos every week are actually subscribed. So go ahead and hit that sub button for me. It's super easy, it's free, and it lets me know you're enjoying what I'm doing. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on in. So this was obviously a Little Cup tour for a pretty sizable prize pool. The APA staff as a whole really banded together and actually raised a lot of money to kind of get this tour out there and get a lot of people incentivized to play Little Cup, which is awesome because I really love this format. I think the more that people give it a chance, the more they see how much fun it is and how refreshing it can really be. Opposed to just a standard draft setting, as stale as that can get, especially as the generation goes on and stuff like that. But yeah, I believe it was $100 for the first place finish. It was $50 for the second, and then it was like 27 some odd change for the third place finish. Because that was just what was left over after the top two, and there was a good 150, 200 round like that signups for the tournament. So there's a lot of people playing in this. And yeah, some really good names, stuff like that. But in our draft pool, I believe we got like 6th or 7th pick out of like 8. So not very good, not very ideal, especially in Little Cup, because if you haven't played Little Cup draft before, you'll know that, the top 3, 4, 5 mons are like a really big ring or like upper echelon above the other tier 1s that are left. So unfortunately, we weren't supposed to really get anything super crazy. We ended up getting a really good mon, as you can see here, in Glare and Farfetch, which is something I actually didn't think would last me as low as I was, but it's definitely no Volibee or Ghastly, which we allowed, which was pretty dumb. There's a bunch of different crazy things that we unfortunately didn't get, but or a Ponytail, which I absolutely love. But we got Farfetch, and Farfetch is someone I haven't tried in draft before. I've used a bunch of the ladder. I've really enjoyed it there. Really strong, has access to Scrappy, which not only this gen allows me to hit ghost types in my close combats, coming off that stab, really high attack and stuff. But it's also immune to Intimidate. So you're like Snubble, which is a great fighting check, isn't a very good check to big Farfetch here, because they're not going to a Poison Jab will knock out most of them after rocks, which is obviously super clutch because they can't intimidate me and things like that. I think Farfetch is a really nasty Pokemon, whether it be with a Scarf or a bulky SD set. It gets quick attack for priority, it gets Brave Bird, knockoff, Poison Jab, like I mentioned, big close combats coming off. It's a really solid Pokemon. I believe it hits 17 speed. 16, I apologize. My Little Cup speed tiers are awful, despite how much I play it. But it hits 16 speed, so we'll have to patch that up, with some faster Pokemon, maybe potentially some webs, stuff like that for this thing to really just thrive. But with proper momentum, proper hazard support, and, good positioning, this Pokemon's an absolute menace. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into round 2. So as I mentioned with Glare and Farfetch, it's a really good Pokemon, and it's really strong. It's got great natural bulk, but one thing it does lack is in the speed. Obviously, 16 isn't the best speed tier, and so you either want something a lot faster than it, or something that can provide webs for it in order to really let it threaten and just rip through opposing teams and stuff like that. Those faster threats that can revenge it if it does get a little bit chipped. And I thought Cutiefly was the perfect pick for it, so we went with that round 2. Now this Cutiefly cannot use Quiver Dance. It's just kind of an AP thing. We do not allow QD on Cutiefly. It would be pretty ridiculous as a Pokemon without it, but we do get access to Calm Mind, so we do have some setup in it and that option. But the main reason I grabbed it was, one, that sweet 19 speed tier. There's 2 or 3 Pokemon in the entire tier that'll actually outspeed that. There's a few more that'll speed tie it. But in Little Cup, 19 is a really elite number to hit. So I absolutely love that, and having Cutiefly hit a speed tier like that, which is obviously really good. It gets momentum in U-turn, and obviously it gets Sticky Webs. And I think Sticky Webs with Farfetch is really difficult to deal with, especially in a tour like this. I think Cutiefly is an absolute menace. Its dual stabs are pretty good, especially when you pair that with U-turn. And the thing that you're going to be forcing in with Cutiefly the most are going to be those really bulkier steals, which honestly there aren't too many of in the Little Cup format. So if we're not playing against a steal, then a Life Orb Cutiefly can go to work pretty easily, on top of having that webs option to really support Farfetch. So I really like Cutie. I had it in APLC Wi-Fi Season 3 with Ghastly, and it was a great member of the team. It's not going to be your kill leader, but it's going to get up webs, it's going to revenge kill some things, it's going to have that 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 really good offensive matchups where you can run Life Orb with stabs and Psychic and things like that, which is obviously super clutch. It forces damage on poison types as well, which are a little bit more prevalent in Little Cup. but you have access to Psychic, and getting that Psychic chip off could be, you know, the deciding factor for your Farfetch to end up sweeping the endgame, because it's another fighting resist, and a lot of the fighting resist in the tier aren't necessarily going to be bulky Psychics, which this thing breaks, but they're going to be fatter poisons, like your Trubbish, like your Grimer, your Gulpin, even, you know, things like that that can pivot into fighting type moves. So I think Cutiefly is a perfect pair with Farfetch, and I'm really excited to start off the draft with these two. So next up, we ended up grabbing one of my absolute favorite Pokemon to use in the Little Cup, you know, draft format, and that's going to be Stunky. Now, I think Stunky in particular fits really, really well in this team. One, because of its typing. Its typing really allows it to break and, you know, really offensive with pressure, the things that Farfetch doesn't necessarily really appreciate. It's obviously a dark type for those psychic types that might switch into the close combat, stuff like that. The ones that don't want to take knockoff, but, you know, if they're Colbur, they might be able to take two, depending on them. So I think having a dark is obviously really important in draft in general, but in Little Cup, it's not necessarily like I need a dark or I lose to Reuniclus, because there really isn't any Reuniclus Dimolans. But we do have that psychic immunity if we do go up against any Abras or anything like that. And it gives something to really break down those bulky Psychics. And another thing it does is it really breaks down those bulky Fairies, which are also a big, big nuisance to Farfetch. So I think that's really, really clean. It gets access to Nasty Plot, which is really clean. It's not the strongest thing from the special side, but once you boost that up to +2, because everything's so frail in Little Cup, that base 41 special attack stat becomes a lot more menacing in all honesty, especially with like a Life Orb tacked onto it. With its good dual stabs plus Fire Blast or Flamethrower, can be really, really solid. It gets Sucker Punch for priority. It gets Haze, it gets Taunt, it gets Defog, it gets Sucker Punch. It gets a bunch of different options that make this thing a really, really solid pick in LC. And another thing it offers us is a Pokemon at the 18 speed tier. It hits a max speed of 18 with a Timid or a Jolly nature, or any speed boosting nature for that matter. But that's obviously really solid, so we have something right between the Farfetch'd and our Cutiefly right there at 18. We do end up picking up something at 17 later on too, so we're really hitting every single speed tier, making it to where our opponents can really never take advantage of us in Little Cup, because the Adamant and Modest, you know, runnings in Little Cup are a little bit more few and far in between, because everything's so close in speed, and you're often seeing a lot of speed ties just because of how the numbers work at level 5. But in those few instances where it can happen, it can be really detrimental. So if we were to go up against a you know, we didn't get Stunky right here, and we didn't get the base 17 later. We were to go up against an opposing Stunky, you know, another one that hit 18. It could run Adamant or Modest versus us, because they would only need to hit 17. So I think that's really important to hit that number. And like I said, gives us hazard removal, gives us priority, and gives us a really good, you know, potential breaker and pivot for this team. And it gives us a Grookey check, and Grookey is absolutely terrifying in this format, especially with Grassy Clyde. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on to round 4. So round 4, we end up grabbing Pikipek, and this is going to be that base, or that max speed 17 one that I was talking about before, so our higher speed tiers are like in a phenomenal spot right here. We don't get anything at the base 20 tier, but our team is very, very fast. Also, you know, with the web support, it can be really, really solid in its own right. But Pikipek is an absolute monster. This is one I've been dying to try. I played this thing in my Clash King Season 2 run against a couple teams, and until I prepped for it, I didn't realize how ridiculous this mon is, and how hard it is to switch into. It's abysmally frail. It has 35 HP and then 30 in both of its defense stats, which is awful. Like, super, super bad. But it hits a 17 speed tier. It has 75 base attack. And then with its, obviously, flying span being really good in Little Cup with Brave Bird, that's obviously really, really tough to switch in. But then you take into account the fact that it has Skill Link and then moves like Bullet Seed to, you know, hit those Steel Resist in Rock types really, really hard and blow through all of them. And multi-hit moves, as you know, in Little Cup are really broken. The damage rolls are ridiculous sometimes, so that's obviously really clutch. And to guarantee get 5 out of that, really insane. It also has access to Flame Charge and Brick Break for those steel types that might switch into it. It has access to U-Turn, Swords Dance, a bunch of different options. I really do like Pikipek a lot. I've even run like Mixed Boom Burst before and stuff like that on the ladder and stuff, just to hit those physical walls a little bit harder and things like that. So I really do like Piki. I think it's an amazing Pokemon. And under webs, especially when you can, you know, slow down those opposing Scarfers or just slow down those faster mons, this thing will absolutely rip through defensive course. So it's a really, really solid pickup for us in round 4. So round 5 rolls along, and I'm realizing, one, I have like no defensive backbone on this team at all. We are offense, 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 offense. A few pivots, I suppose, but nothing to really, you know, pivot into things and switch into things. Well, we have no hazards besides Sticky Web. We have no rocks at this point. We have pretty subpar removal because Cutie never wants to click it, And Stunky, I'm pretty much probably never bringing it. I think it's such a waste of Stunky's moveset, especially in a lot of matches where it has Major Form moveset syndrome. So I ended up picking up Sandshrew, and this is a phenomenal Pokemon. Obviously, it gives us a spinner. It gives us rocks. I don't think it gets access to spikes like Sandslash does in the DLC, but it's honestly fine. We don't really need it. I just wanted that really solid, bulky ground pivot to stop my team from getting Volt Search all over, which it was very, very, very susceptible up to this point in doing so. It gets access to Knockoff and Earthquake. We can be like a cool Sand Rush set and manually set sand for ourselves and really rip through teams that way. Gets access to Swords Dance. The Rapid Spin buff is really nice for it as well, so we can Rapid Spin and maybe potentially even outspeed some, threats that would pick us off afterwards, which is really cool. And our team rips apart Grass types right now, so not too big of a deal that they come in for free on Sandshrew up to this point. So I think this was a really, really solid pickup and kind of helping us cement more of a defensive core, which we do really focus on these next few picks because our team is so potent on the offensive side of things already. We can kind of focus in more on getting that backbone, getting those good solid pivots to where we can position our really good top first 4 picks in the end game to win. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on to the next round. Now, round 6 rolls along, and we had to go get my boy Cotton Eye Joe, Galarian Meowth. I absolutely love this Pokemon, and I know we just talked about getting a defensive core and really setting the starter backbone. This isn't really a defensive mon. It's pretty subpar when you look at its stats, especially like as a steel. It's not a great flying resist. It doesn't have great coverage, but I love this Pokemon. I couldn't tell you why either. It has a really bad speed tier. I believe it hits, 14? Yeah, it hits 14 with a Jolly Nature. Which isn't the worst when we have web support, but it gets Tough Claws, it gets Iron Head, it gets U-Turn, and it gets Fake Out. A bunch of really nice, clean tools for LC, and it gives us a flying resist, which we don't have up to this point. We do get a better one later on, which I think is really nice, but I like having a Steel type. I like having something that not only breaks fairies for our Farfetch, but can actually pivot in on them, where Stunky is taking neutral from those Moonblasts, from those Dazzling Gleams. Meowth can legitimately just hard switch into them, get a ton of damage off, or at least get us momentum with U-Turn, which is really, really great as well. Tough Claws makes this thing pretty freaking strong with its base 65 attack. There's another Pokemon I had in LC Wi-Fi Season 2, and I didn't expect to like it at all, and I ended up really, really loving this thing. So I think it's pretty solid on the team. Not really helping towards our defensive backbone that I was just preaching about, but I promise we do get to those eventually. But round 6, we end up getting Galarian Meowth. Round 7, we got an actual flying resist in Nose Pass. Now, what this does is it gives us another Stealth Rocker, which I think is very, very important. I think it's very important to have a Rock type in general on LC with flying types so, potent offensively. And so offensively potent offensively. Nice job, Owen. But this thing, just now getting into the movie, and I'm already stumbling over my words and having a dry throat. But really, really solid mon. It's a really reliable rocker. Access to sturdy, so I like having a sturdy mon as well for sturdy juice. Shenanigans, Thunder Wave, it gets Volt Switch. It can be physical or special. It's just a really, really solid Pokemon. It gets Endure as well to guarantee proc or berry juice if we do get that play correctly. And it's just a nice blanket check to a lot of really scary things in that tier. So I think this is a really nice pickup for a cheaper amount of points. And to give us another rocker to where we're not forced to bring Sandshrew every week going into the tour. So if you look at our team going into round 8, you'll kind of notice we kind of lose to a good offensive fighting type. They kind of rip through our team at this point because our fighting resist is going to be a Cutie Fly, which is a 4x resist, but is also ridiculously frail and dies to any coverage move. So I wanted to pick up a solid fighting pivot. I wanted to pick up a Ghost type to potentially spin block as well for our hazards that we do have up to this point. And I wanted a nice bulky water because we also didn't have any real fire resist besides Nose Pass. So I figured taking a little bit of pressure off of that would have been nice, especially when they can Will-O us, permanently break our sturdy and be a general nuisance. So I went and grabbed Frillish. Frillish is another Pokemon I really enjoy in draft. I can fit that really bulky role that we were just talking about, or I can go just all out on the offensive, be Scarf, Water Spout, and just rip through teams that don't have good water resist. So I think it's a good kind of dual option for our team to really either put on some offensive pressure or be a great bulky pivot and a lot of things that our team really does struggle with up to this point. So really happy with a round 8 Frillish. I think that's pretty late for it to go, in all honesty. I think this Pokemon's phenomenal. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into round 9. So with our second to last pick, we ended up grabbing Cacnea. Now, I think this mon is super slept on in the draft setting. I think it's really, really solid. It gives us a water immunity on top of Frillish, which obviously has water absorb. But having 2 is really, really clutch, especially for a team that doesn't really appreciate switching and Scald up until those 2. It gives us Spikes. It gives us Sucker Punch priority. It gets Stab, Bullet Seed, and Swords Dance, and Poison Jab, and, Obviously sets up spikes and things like that. It gets access to Destiny Bond. I think it's a really cool slept on lower tier pick. And I like the spikes option. I really like the Hazard Stack approach with this team. Potentially making it to where a Scarf Farfetch can like go nuts. If we get up 2 spikes, rocks, and webs, and we go in with Scarf Farfetch and we just click CC 5 times, the game's probably over. So I think that's really, really clutch for us. I really do like Cacnea on this build. There's, you know, a nice low tier mod. And it also gives us a ground resist, which we don't have up to this point. Not the most sturdy ground resist, don't get me wrong. Like, if we go up against a drill bro, we're in for a tough time. But other than that, I really do like Cacnea for this build. Then in round 10, we ended up grabbing Wimpod. Now, Wimpod doesn't necessarily fit the team very well. We have a water. Excuse me. We have a bug type. We have spikes. You know, a bunch of things like that. But if you know Little Cup Draft, you know, once you get down the lower points, everything kind of sucks. And this was the best Pokemon left, and this is the Pokemon I saw myself getting the most value out of if I drafted. It's decently fast as well. I believe it hits 19 speed as well. If not, it hits 18. It hits 18 speed, which is obviously solid in itself. We can obviously scald some things down, get some burns, despite this thing being very weak. It also gets access to Aqua Jet. It gets a fast taunt. And it could be just a nice pivot if we really need to. Wimp Out's a pretty garbage ability, but it can be nice in niche instances. So, yeah, it was just kind of the best, most useful mod in that price point that was left. And I couldn't see myself really getting much use out of anything else, so we ended up grabbing that. But yeah, that's going to be our draft. We're going to jump into some pool play. We played 3 games in pools. We did get 1 forfeit, which I'll talk about during the thing. But we'll talk about our 3 pool games and, you know, go from there. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so for pools game number 1, we ended up having Cheez-Its. I believe our pool's opponents were, we had Cheez-Its was one of them, who I heard is a pretty solid player. I haven't played him before this, but I think he's an Odyssey guy. I think he did very well there. I think he's pretty good in some other leagues. I don't know his Little Cup experience, but no State or draft is pretty solid, I heard. We had the GOAT George Blaze, G-Blaze, Professor Blaze, as they call him. Then we had Legits, who's a Little Cup player I have never beaten in my entire life. And then we had Ravens, who actually, since the time of recording this, actually I believe was a semi-finalist in LC Season 4. So they obviously, you know, understand the format pretty well. So we didn't have like a crazy pool, but we had, you know, some people who knew what they were doing. We had the best player in Pokemon history in our pool. So it was pretty tough. We're going to have to really show up and show out to make brackets here. Game 1, we end up going up against Cheez-Its. And as you can see, the 6 they end up bringing, I'm not going to go over their rosters, and, you know, my roster is super in-depth just because this is a super long video. But they have a Ponytail, Grookey, Trubbish, Riolu, Wingull, and Onix. While our team, quick rundown of what we're bringing. I believe we were, for this game, I recently lost all my teams on my computer, so I can't even go back and, like, pull up the paste and, like, let you guys know exactly what I actually was. But we were a Eviolite Farfetch. I think I was SC, Knock, Brave Bird, Close Combat. We were a Berry Juice, Picky Peck, a Choice Scarf Meowth with Facade on it because I knew that Flame Body Ponytail was 100% coming, and I wanted to potentially beat a burn from that because once the Onix went down, Facade actually cleaves through my opponent's team. We were a Taunt, Nasty Plot, Dual Stabs, Eviolite, Stunky, a Scarf Frillish as well, so we were rocking out with Dual Scarf this week. As you can see, my opponent's a Water Resist is 1 Grookey, which isn't the most sturdy thing, and we do have pretty solid pivots into Grookey, and it doesn't really switch in on a full-powered Water Spout very well. And then, what do you call it, the Wingull, which takes 87 million from a Water Spout. And then we were a special Berry Juice Nose Pass, I believe, with Power Gem, Earth Power, Volt Switch, and Stealth Rock. Obviously going to be our main pony type. The reason I went special over physical was 1, so we can go Earth Power to avoid the train instead of Earthquake, and 2, because I knew that thing would potentially try and Will-Wisp me, and that would be really, really annoying. So I wanted to make sure we still had some decent damage output, because if we get burned, I think a bulkier pony can actually pretty easily beat us 1v1, so we want to make sure that we go special in that instance if we can. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I am going to lead off with my Meowth. Turn 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for U-turn. I don't expect Scarf Wingull. Scarf Wingull does not knock me out in 1, and if I get burned, so be it. I am Facade. But I really don't expect Scarf Wingull. What I'm going to do is just go throw off a U-turn. What this will do is it'll put in range of pretty much everything on my team. This Pokemon is ridiculously frail, and getting that chip damage off on it is very, very nice. And this is like one of his few Iron Head pivots, that and Pony. So I figured getting the U-turn chip off was really, really nice in this instant. As we are going to do a clean 33, reveal it's not Scarf, and then go into our Frillish on the Scald and get that Water Absorb. From here, just going to throw off a Water Spout. My opponent, again, does not switch into Frillish whatsoever, so Water Spout was incredibly free there. They could have went Grookey. We still have a full health Eviolite Stunky in the back, so obviously the Frillish was really, really free there, just clicking a button. And now my opponent's going to go into Onix, and obviously you're thinking, don't you just Water Spout it? This is 4 times weak. him going into this says I'm sturdy juice, 100%. So I think my best play is to go into my Farfetch. Reason being, I can take 2 hits from this thing pretty easily because we are Eviolite and we can knock off into close combat and always knock it out from there. So I am going to pivot out immediately, go into my Farfetch as he ends up clicking Rock Polish. He's not Dragon Dance, he's Rock Polish. That's actually pretty solid for us because as you're going to see, because it's high horsepower, we actually take that hit very, very well to the point where after we knock this thing off and knock off its weakness policy, so it definitely wasn't berry juice, which would have been actually really scary if you would have actually, what do you call it? Water sprouted that thing. It would have went down and been +2/+2. We might have honestly just lost the game, which is terrifying. So, made the right pivot there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click knock off. I know 2 high horsepowers won't knock me out. And close combat is pretty much unresisted on my opponent's team. I mean, the Trubbish is there, but I have good ways of dealing with Trubbish up to this point. I still have my full health Stunky. I still have Meowth. And what do you call it? Nosepass can actually deal with it pretty easily as well. So that's obviously really, really nice. But he's going to actually reveal the explosion. That's something we're not going to live, unfortunately. As down goes Farfetch. Completely fine, though. I'm going to go to my Stunky. Reason being is it matched up well versus 3 out of his 4. Ponyta, a little bit annoying, but I have a great pivot into it in Nosepass, so I can obviously just go hard onto that if that ends up being the situation that arises. And I can totally see him going into Grookey in order to try and get some momentum on me. Especially if I try and go into my Frillish and claim a KO, because it does claim a KO at this point when it gets in for free, as he is going to pull the switch out as I throw off a free Dark Pulse. No reason to Sludge Bomb there. Again, that thing doesn't really touch me. It doesn't get Stomp and Cancer or anything like that. And then I'm going to taunt this Trubbish the turn afterwards, after he tries to Thief me. Now, this tells me he's probably not Recycle on his Trubbish, because otherwise I couldn't see him losing his Berry Juice and not wanting to recycle it back and having that, for the end of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Dark Pulse, as he tries to steal my item as I, with Dark Pulse again, I guess. But what I'm going to do from here is pivot right onto my Meowth, because I know this thing can't really touch me super well. And I'm going to get a little bit of terrain back, know I outspeed this thing, and then just start throwing off Iron Heads. As he does finally make the Ponyta play, we get 42 off on that Ponyta, so that is not a very bulky pony at all. But unfortunately, we are going to get burned. Not unfortunately, though, because I just forgot in my own commentary that I'm Facade. So we do obviously kind of get forced to switch out right here. Not the biggest deal. He's going to go for a Wild Charge, probably expecting us to go into Village, but being that we're Scarf, we're not very defensive. That's definitely not going to be my pivot, especially when Water Spout kills something right now. As he is going to Will-O-Wisp, kind of confirming that we thought what he was going to be in kind of a bulkier, or not even a bulkier, just a Wispet to try and take advantage of my Nosepass and my Sandshrew. But out comes my Frillish on this Volt Switch, and what this will do is allow me to get some big chip on something. It's not going to be quite enough to 2-hit get the Grookey, but we do, again, still have that free Stunky. As the knockoff comes out, not that big of a deal, though, because this is another Pokemon my opponent just does not switch into up to this point in the battle. So we're going to be able to Dark Pulse right here. Trubbish is going to come in, which is completely fine, because he can try and thief my item, I suppose, but I don't have it anymore. So he's just going to click Drain Punch. This is fine. Berry Juice is going to pop. We're going to get that right back, and this is going to give me a free opportunity to get up my rocks to make it to where the Grookey isn't as easy of a pivot. The Ponyta's getting much more worn down, and then if it's a Sash, Riolu, like a setup set in the back, will be in a better spot as well. So Riolu's going to come out here, so we actually do end up going for the Earth Power, doing only like 29, so it's a little bit bulkier. As a Crunch comes out, probably expecting our Frillish, as I am just going to Volt Switch. That Soul Momentum was nice, and I didn't really need Nosepass or anything at this point. I'm not super worried about the Ponyta at this point, as he is going to reveal Copycat, switch out himself, as I do just throw off a very, very free Facade, 76% off on this Trubbish, and we're easily going to be able to 2-hit KO it. And honestly claim another one in the meantime, as out comes a Riolu, trying to Copycat us and chip us down, but Facade's obviously not going to knock us out from there. It was a 2-hit KO, which is pretty crazy, but we're able to knock out the Riolu, which is a big, big threat to us at this point in the game, especially if it started SDing and Copycat and being, a big general nuisance. As out comes the Grookey, we are just going to sack off Meowth up to this point. Don't really need it right now, and then it gives me a free Picky Peck to claim a kill with Brave Bird. We are juiced, so we're going to be able to chew that Grass Slide, get up to full, and then Brave Bird one more time, and this pretty much seals the game at this point, because we just stopped this thing from ever being able to click Substitute if it is sub, as it does reveal just a quick Wild Charge versus us. Completely fine, because this allows me to go into my Scarf Frillish and pick it off with a Water Spout. So that's going to be a nice 3-0, pretty convincing win for us in our pool game 1 versus Cheez-Its. He brought a very, very interesting team. The Onyx set was actually really, really freaking cool. That was terrifying. But other than that, it was really cool to see the Facade Meowth work out. It was really cool to see the the special Nosepass be a little bit better, and I think we positioned ourselves really well in this game. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on to Pools Game 2. So game 3, we were going up against Ravens, as I said. Pretty solid LC player. I know they're newer to the format, but they actually did make finals in LC Showdown Season 4. They lost to Bash, but had a great season. So they obviously know what they're doing. They have a really scary team. As you can see, the stuff they have right now, they have Helio, Grookey, Stunky, Timber, Tortuga, and Milcery. And if you know me, I always end up losing to Tortuga. Every time I play it, I get smashed by it. I don't know why. I just am on. I never really deal with. To be fair, we do have a pretty solid Tortuga matchup in this particular game. But we're still going to have to be careful around it nonetheless. So, yeah, definitely got to be smart. While the mons that we end up bringing, I don't, again, have all of this specific sets. And I can only kind of go through and look and see what was shown in this battle. But I know we were in EVO Farfetch'd. I believe we were SD with Quick Attack for the sturdy potential on the... what do you call it? The Tortuga. We were a Berry Juice Cacnea, a Rocky Helmet Stunky, because I believe you're EVO on, what were we EVO on? We were on EVO on another one. It might have even been Piggy Peck, as weird as that is, because I didn't see an item on that when I was rewatching this. And then we were a Colbert Berry, what do you call it? We were a Colbert Berry Frillish to check the Timber a little bit better, because like I said, our fighting resistance checks in this game on this team aren't the best, so having that is obviously super clutch for us. Going into this game, let's go ahead and just jump into it. I did lead off with my Cacnea. I figured it led very well versus a potential Grookey. We were SD with Sucker, Bullet Seed, and Poison Jab, so that was obviously really nice. But unfortunately, my opponent is going to lead Stunky. Not a very advantageous lead for us. They do throw off the Sludge Bomb. They don't get the Poison, which is really nice, as I do have a very free knockoff on this turn. Close combat won't knock out the Stunky from full regardless, and knocking off something on the incoming switch, his potential check to us, is obviously really clutch. Whether that be like a really fat Timber or more than likely this Milcery, because there's no other reason for this thing to come versus me, besides to try and pivot into Farfetch. But it's not the best pivot. We do knock off its Eviolite, which is really clutch for us. As we are going to switch out, we don't knock out the Poison Jab up to this point, but I know Cacnea can actually take on hits pretty well. And out comes the Stunky. We're going to Poison Jab it. Get a nice 21% off, which is really clutch, and then go out into our Farfetch as a Corrosive Gas is going to pop. Now, I completely didn't even know what this move did up until this point. This is like right after DLC dropped, which is, pretty, a good while ago. That's why I don't remember all of the games perfectly. But what Corrosive Gas does is it's a non-damaging poison type move that actually just, gets rid of the item of the opponent. So, oh, we were Berry Juice. Oops, we weren't EVO. But it's going to get rid of my Berry Juice on my Farfetch, which is really cool and a really smart bring, because we did live another Sludge Bomb. We would have obviously just gotten right back up to full, which would have been really advantageous for us. So that's a really cool bring by Ravens, because this next Sludge Bomb is actually going to put us in range to where, even though we knock this thing out with a close combat, which is a trade I will 100% take, we will die to Poison plus Aftermath, which is obviously not great because my opponent did not switch into this one. So it's a great trade for them and it's a really cool bring. So big props to them on that. I thought that was awesome. But out comes a Helioptile. I figured this might want to come out because we do not have a ground type on this build. So I figured our Volt Switch was pretty free up to this point, and I wanted to go into my Pokemon that could take on the hit a little bit better. As we do get out into Cacnea, what I'm going to do is throw off a Bullet Seed. Opponent doesn't have great switch into it now that Stunky is gone, so it's obviously a great trade for us, as I'm going to be able to kill Bullet Seed into Poison Jab. And yeah, out comes the Timber. I have a pretty free Frillish right here. They make a good play, go for the knockoff as we were EVO. Man, I'm just completely messing up. I might be Colbert in the next game. But what it's going to allow me to do is just go for a Psychic. I was Psychic for the Timber, obviously, and it made it to where the Helioptile didn't just switch in for me. Switching on me for absolutely free. So that's a nice chip for us right there. I'm going to go Cacnea just because I can live a hit, a Thunderbolt, and then get back all the way to full on this thing, throwing off a big Life Orb hit as we do end up picking it off with a Sucker Punch. And this is awesome, because this is going to allow us to stay at full with our Cacnea tool. We don't have to take another hit. We could have obviously lived whatever hit it went for, but if it went for a U-turn, that was obviously really, not good for us as well, because I would have done a ton with the Life Orb and being that we're a Cacnea. So picking that off with the Sucker Punch was super clutch. It just goes to show how clutch priority can be in a Little Cup setting. So out comes the Grookey. I still do have my Stunky. I am going to beat Rocky Helmet. He does get a crit, which is a bit annoying. But not the end of the world, in all honesty. We still do have ways of beating it. As I am just going to go out into my Frillish right here, as I know I can, either sack this thing off to get a free switch or come in on the Drain Punch. As he does end up going for the Drain Punch, we get a nice 50% off with the Psychic, which is going to be really nice in chipping this thing down for the rest of our team. Now, I go into my Stunky right here to throw out some big Sludge Bombs. I know I can 1v1 this thing pretty easy. I believe I didn't go into my Cutie Fly because I was Scarf, and I didn't want to Scarf Lock into the wrong move, potentially, against that Tortuga, as it could get up potentially 2 smashes on my switch if I, have to switch out, obviously, as the Moonblast doesn't kill or puts juice range or something like that. So I wanted to position myself in the best way possible for right here, as we are going to be able to get out into our Cacnea on the Grookey. And this is a really commanding position for us, because I know a U-turn won't kill us. So if a U-turns out, we get to Poison Jab into that Tortuga, and obviously break it sturdy, pick it off with a Bullet Seed the turn after. If he ends up staying in, we get a giant Poison Jab off of this thing to where it probably will be in range of a Sucker Punch afterwards. So Cacnea really putting in the work this game, as he's going to U-turn. We chew that pretty easily, and we're going to be able to go for a Poison Jab. We nab the Poison, though I don't think that really matters, because it would have been out of range of its sturdy regardless. So obviously that's really great. One Bullet Seed says good night. We are able to knock that thing out. And out comes the Grookey. It can click Wood Hammer right here, knock me out. That's completely fine, because I still do have my Piggy Peck chill in the back at full HP, even if this thing is Scarf, which it does end up being, because I'm just realizing my lights went crazy. Oops. We'll fix that going into the next one, as I'm like a robot right now, or like, you know, just a part of the system. But we're going to be able to pick off that Grookey and win 2-0, and a really, really good game versus Ravens. I think they brought a really cool team, especially that Corrosive Gas on the what do you call it, was really, really cool, the Stunky. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into our last pools game. Alright, so game 3, we end up going up against Legits. Legits is a really, really solid just draft league player in general, but he's really good at LCE for the little amount he plays it. He's absolutely ripped apart Clash Season 1 and Season 2. Very, very solid dude. I played him in Clash Season 1, and he demolished me. It was one of my 2 losses that season. He beat our team when we played them in Clash 2 as well. He played against Darkrai and beat Darkrai off the back of a little bit of luck. But very solid player nonetheless. I've actually never beaten him, whether it be Standard or Little Cup, so I really did want to win this game. I didn't want to reveal too much, though, because at this point, I'll talk about it a little bit. I'll just talk about it now. The GOAT, George Blaze, unfortunately, as good as he is, he realized it's just not fair for him to play in the tour with everybody else, because, you know, with the big cash prize and a lot of people working really hard, he felt it'd be kind of cheap of him to just come in and smash the competition and get that 100. So ended up just retiring as a whole while he was out on top. So applause to him for that. So unfortunately got a forfeit win against George Blaze. As much as I wanted to, you know, learn and, you know, really up my game from him, it just didn't end up working out that way. So we were 3-0 going into this game, so we were guaranteed to move on to brackets. I didn't want to reveal too much, though. I did definitely prepare a real team. I'm not gonna like make that excuse. I definitely really, really wanted to win this, because again, I've never beaten him up to this point. But you can see the team that Legits has. He has a very similar team to us. He did go with that cutie Farfetch, really scary offensive core, but he got Pawniard with it, which is really, really scary. Not only that, he has Trubbish, which is great for setting up spikes versus my team and really chipping me down. It's a great Farfetch check as well. He has the Frillish, which is another one that we end up picking up, and he has Drillbur. And if you remember in the, you know, the little tiny draft analysis part of this that we talked about, Drillbur is a massive threat versus our team. Our ground resist is Cacnea, which isn't a good ground resist, unfortunately. So this game was definitely a very tough matchup against a very, very good player. But going into it, stuff I remember that we 100% brought. I remember, oh man, I think we were Scarf Farfetch, because I did really, really well in this game. Either that or we were SD. We had a Eviolite Calm Mind Cutie Fly, because if you look at his team, he does not appreciate switching into Moonblast plus Psychic. Psychic blows away Trubbish at +1 if it's not especially defensive. If we get a little bit of chip on Pawniard, Moonblast blows it away, and other than that, we just kind of cleave through the team with a little bit of hazard support, which is obviously really nice. We were a defensive Frillish. I forget exactly our Stunky and our Sandshrew and our Cacnea. But let's go ahead and jump in regardless. So we are going to lead off with our Sandshrew. I think rocks are really, really important. It also covered a potential Trubbish lead, as that thing wants to, like, you know, spike up on my team or deal with a potentially Cutify lead, trying to get up webs and things like that. So obviously it's a really good spot for us. It also covers a rocks Pawniard lead. It covers a Drillbur lead, because this is a pretty solid check to it as well, and we can beat it in that 1v1 situation. So we are going to lead off with our Sandshrew, get a pretty free rocks as he goes hard into Cutify. This is completely fine, as I am going to hard out into my Stunky, knowing I can take 2 hits from it, depending on what it is, as he does go for an Energy Ball, and he gets a crit. Now, this is really, really unfortunate, because this crit, what it's going to do, because this thing is Life Orb, is it's going to put us in range of a Moonblast, which is really, really unfortunate with our Stunky. That thing was actually really solid in this game overall. It was a good Pawniard check, as it did outspeed it and wasn't weak to Sucker Punch. It could always Flamethrower or Fire Blast. I believe we were Fire Blast because of the damage rolls. And it was just a really good overall mon versus his team. The Dark plus Poison and Fire was really solid in this matchup overall. So what I'm going to do after this, I'm going to go into my Frillish as he goes into his. We were Scarf in this game, actually, okay? As he goes hard into it, making a very, very ballsy play on us, realizing that, you know, not kicking a Ghost move versus his team, most likely, as we do pivot out into Cacnea, as this thing ends up throwing off a Sludge Bomb. Another very cool bring, as unfortunately we are going to get 2-hit KO, so great play by Legits there. Again, him just absolutely saucing me in a few instances in which we've met. As I am just going to go into Farfetch, throw off a pretty free knockoff up to this point. Unfortunately, obviously, it is Sticky Hold. We do get a crit. Doesn't matter. He gets right back up to full anyways, as he's going to make a clean double on our Sandshrew coming in, as I am forced to switch out a Life Orb Energy Ball. We'll do way too much, and we need to keep it somewhat healthy for the Pawniard, as this gives him a free webs, and that's not fun. However, I'm going to go into my own Q-Fly, use this as an opportunity to set up a Calm Mind. Out comes the Trubbish, and that thing drops after rocks to a Psychic. Now, he goes into the Farfetch, and obviously him going into this says, I'm Choice Scarf. 100%. There's no reason for him to come in other than this. And him expecting I'm obviously not Sash as well, as I am EV-Light in this game, so that definitely does make sense. So here I'm kind of put in a precarious spot. I do want to go into my Sandshrew, though, because I feel like it'll put on, one, the most offensive pressure on him switching into me afterwards, and two, it gives me a potential opportunity to spin away these webs. I think spinning away these webs are very, very nice for us in this, particular point in the match. So I am going to make the play to Sandshrew, expecting him to Poison Jab us right here, as he does end up going for said play. Unfortunately, nabs the poison. Not the biggest deal in the world, just a bit annoying, unfortunately, as I am going to throw off a knockoff. The reason I throw off a knockoff is because, from Legit's perspective, he doesn't really need Frillish for anything in this game. And obviously spin blocking would be phenomenal for him right here. It just basically gives me nothing out of the turn, as I am going to be able to throw off a very, very, very free knockoff. Knock this thing off and keep it very low to where it's in range of pretty much everything on our team at this point. So I'm going to go into my Frillish. Reason being, I don't think he Shadow Balls. I will 2-hit KO with a knockoff, obviously, or even just an Earthquake, and be in a pretty good spot afterwards. So I do expect a Water move, and with our Scarf, we can potentially win a Speed Tie, and knock him out the Shadow Ball in the turn afterwards, as he is going to go for Hex when the Speed Tie. Not the biggest deal, as we do go for a Shadow Ball and knock out said Frillish. Now, out comes the Cutie Fly. Unfortunately, don't really have switch into this thing anymore, especially with how chip my team is getting, so I am going to let the Frillish go down. Very, very unfortunate, but we are going to put this thing in range of a potential Cutie Fly hit. It was probably in range of it before, so we are going to obviously be slower, but we chew that up due to our EV-Light, and we pick it off with the Moonblast ourselves. Now, we're in a bit of a precarious situation, though, because looking at my team, looking at Pawniard, there's not much I can do at this point. My Sandshrew is too chipped to take a +2 hit. Farfetch dies to a +2 Iron Head, and Q-Fly cannot outgrow this thing. And at this point, we're just outsped, just knocked out by everything that this thing ends up going for. I'm going to go for a Moonblast, hoping to get like a big Mega Crit, and he's not EV-Light for some reason. He does reveal the Sword Stance, not good. We do 48, so it is a 2-hit KO, but we give him the Defiant boost by getting a special attack drop. Don't think it mattered in all honesty, because of just, how chipped our team was and how strong Pawniard really is. He's going to throw off an Iron Head, knock out our Cutifly. We're going to go into Farfetch, die, immediately, and then out comes Sandshrew, and we're going to die once again, as we were Berry Juice. Unfortunate. So, fortunately, we are going to lose our last game to Legits in the pools, but that does allow us to move on with a 3-1 record. I believe we were the 32 seed going into this brackets round, so while this sucks that we lost to Legits, I believe he was the #1 seed in the whole tour. After our pools, he went 4-0, and, pretty convincingly won all his games, including his game versus me. And the only way we would meet up with him again would be in the finals. He was on the complete opposite side of the bracket, so I was happy to get that one out of the way and just kind of hope somebody knocked him off so I didn't have to play him again, because obviously I just don't know what I'm doing when I play against him. And we're going to move into, brackets with a clean slate and hopefully make a deep run for it. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into our bracket round. So for round 1 of brackets, we got matched up against TJ, and TJ is a phenomenal player. He was actually Legit's co-captain in Clash this last season, good buddy of him, so it's pretty funny that we played our last game of pools against Legits and then played right up against his buddy in round 1. But TJ is a great little cup player on his own. I believe we are 1-1 against each other in the tier. I beat him in Clash 2 with a Munchlax sweep, and then he beat me in LC Evo. I forget how, but I'm pretty sure he pretty convincingly smashed me in that league. So wanted to kind of swing the series, between us back in my favor, and obviously move on to the tour. But he's a great, great, great player in the format. Not only in this format, obviously, just in regular draft, I think it carries over. I think you do have to be, have your, your bearings in standard draft before you can jump in a little cup and be a stud. But yeah, very, very scary team. I said scheme that he has. Very scary team that he has. So as you can see, the 6 that he has right here on our screen are going to be Galarian Mouth. Galarian Mouth. This is awful. I still have a good amount of games to go without spoiling. Galarian, Meowth, Goldeen, Pikipek, Snubble, Ponyta, and Baltoy. Ponyta is very scary versus me. Like a physical set with potentially just sub 3 attacks, even just sub 2 attacks with Zen Headbutt, high horsepower, rips through my team. Terrifies me. It's really, really good versus us. Galarian Meowth is actually a pretty big nuisance for us to switch into with its coverage options. Piggy Peck is Piggy Peck, and that thing, as you have seen in our other games, or if you've just seen LC Draft in general, does not have switch-ins. Not fun. Snubbull is a pretty solid Meowth. Farfetch check. Obviously, we can't be intimidated, but it can take 2 hits pretty easily if it does position itself correctly. And Baltoy is a general nuisance because our Dark type is obviously weak to ground, so that's not fun if you want to be like a setup Baltoy. Not a good time, and also gives them a pretty solid spinner versus us. So go ahead and jumping into the match. As for sets that we brought, I think we might have been Sash Cutie. We could have been some other item, but it doesn't actually show in the game. We were Shukaberry Meowth. Reason being, I believe he had a Dwebble on his team, something like that, in order to, check that thing. We did end up being Shukaberry. Also, lets us take a hit from Baltoy. Let's just, check the Snubbull much easier because that thing obviously does get access to Earthquake, and it lets us take a hit from the Galarian Ponyta much better. So that's obviously really clutch. We were Scarfrillish again. My opponent did not have switch-ins to Water Spout whatsoever besides the Goldeen, and that thing obviously gets chipped. And with proper chip, honestly, we just kind of kill everything with Frillish. So if we position ourselves correctly, we're in a good spot. And he doesn't have any Scarfers off the ground besides Piggy Peck. And I don't think Scarf Piggy Peck comes versus me. I think like Life Orb does because it's so good versus me. He had a Berry Juice Sandshrew with Rapid Spin, Earthquake, Knockoff, and Stealth Rock, obviously, to keep rocks off of our side of the field and keep rocks up on their side of the field, which is nice. We were an EVO 4 attacks fetch with Close Combat, Knockoff, Poison Jab, and Quick Attack. Really solid this matchup. If we can get rocks up and hazards and stuff like that and chip down the Snubbull a little bit, a knockoff into a Poison Jab will knock that thing out, which is really clutch. Quick Attack is good for picking some big threats off. Like, I believe he had, again, I think he had a Dwebble, so if we can Close Combat into Quick Attack that after we pop its Juice, really nice for us. And just, picking off a, weakened Piggy Peck is really nice as well. And then we also have an Eviolite Stunky, meant to try and check that Galarian Ponyta, which, like I said, is a very big threat versus us. So let's go ahead and jump into the game. I am going to lead off with my Farfetch, just because I don't think he has great switch-ins to it at all. He could lead Baltoy, but we have decent pivots into that. He could lead Ponyta, but I think he scouts for Scarf, and I don't think he Scarf himself. So it doesn't put us in the worst position, and I don't think he's going to lead Snubbull. So if we lead off with this, we're in a pretty good spot. We can live pretty much any one hit from anything not named Ponyta. So he is going to lead off with his Meowth Galar, and obviously not knowing a Forest Scarf, and he obviously, might not be Scarf himself. He is going to switch out to Snubbull. I figured knockoff was pretty no drawback, even if he did end up staying in, provided we don't get flinched. We can knock off its item and then CC the next turn, as we are obviously going to be immune to said Scrafty. We knock off its Berry Juice, which is really nice, and then we'll be able to Poison Jab it later on in the game. As we are going to switch out into our Meowth. Pretty solid check, as he does reveal the Thunder Wave. And this is really unfortunate, because Meowth was really solid in this game, but it can still form or serve as that defensive pivot versus my opponent's squad. So I am going to throw off a U-turn. I don't expect him to stay in, and regardless, it's a free, slow U-turn, as I am going to get into my QE5 for free, get up rocks, and then pivot out into Sandshrew, just because it's really nice in this instance, as he is going to go for a U-turn, try and keep a momentum himself into the Baltoy he goes. Now right here, I am going to make the play into my Frillish. I know I can take any one hit from this thing. I do not want to allow him to spin away my webs. If I can't throw off Scarf Water Spouts, that's completely fine. But this is definitely my best pivot into this thing, at least as of right now. As he is going to get up his own Stealth Rock. This is fine, because what this allows me to do is just throw off a free Water Spout at this point, as we do bring this thing down to 42, showing me it's very bulky, and we do not 2-hit KO it from this point, unfortunately, unless we get like a crazy roll and it's like some weird spread or something like that. But I believe looking at the calcs, we didn't 2-hit KO it. So unfortunately, we are going to have to pivot out of this thing, as he does, unfortunately, end up going for a knockoff, revealing that we are Shukaberry. Didn't really matter at this point, because we were paired, and we were probably going to get very chipped going into this. Not the biggest deal, but I am going to throw off a Seed Bomb, as he does reveal their breast. Now, this is really annoying, because this thing that doesn't have great reliable recovery versus me can kind of heal itself up a little bit more freely versus our squad. So that's definitely really annoying. I am packing the Seed Bomb, so I'm going to be able to throw off a big Seed Bomb on this thing. Actually 2-hit KO potentially, which is really clutch, as he is going to pivot out into the Snubbull, which is a very interesting middle ground. I suppose he didn't have great Iron Head resist besides the Goldeen, as I do end up going for a U-turn, expecting him to pivot out, I suppose, more so into the Galarian Meowth. But this gives me a free switch into Frillish, and because of the Goldeen being at 50, a free Water Spout. As down goes the Snubbull, which is great, and out comes this Goldeen. And this thing has to be Restock if he goes into it right now, because we would just 2-hit KO with Water Spout at this point pretty easily, as unfortunately he is going to reveal knockoff. Completely fine, as I am just going to go for, I believe, a Seed Bomb that turn. It might have been a U-turn. Regardless, we get paired, and we're going to get picked off the next turn. Now, that's a bit annoying. I would have liked at least, a little bit of damage on this thing here, scout and see what it was, or something like that. But completely fine. This allows me to go into my Sandshrew, what I'm going to do right here is just get up my own rocks, just because I feel as if they are pretty free at this point in the game. And we're going to get them up in this Meowth's face. He does end up going for a U-turn, as we're going to live it pretty convincingly on. And, you know, get back up to full as he goes out into the ball toy. Now, I could have stayed in, I could have spun, I could have knocked off, you know, really chipped this thing down, as I did take a hit from it pretty easily. What I'm going to do is go out into my village, because I know that he can potentially spin right here, and I think spinning would put me in a really bad spot. I could still get up my hazards later, but with the momentum I have right now, I don't want to allow it to happen, as TJ makes a really, really solid play, expecting me to go out into my village once again, and he goes for a Shadow Ball. Now, I knew that would knock me out, unless he was like Life Orb very offensive, which he had shown not to be. Well, actually, he didn't show not to be Life Orb, but don't really see that too often. If he did, he got me. I can just revenge him with Q-Fly the next turn. But regardless, he's going to get off a big Shadow Ball, and I'm going to throw off a pretty free Scald, because like I said, Goldeen rocks plus 2 Scalds should be able to knock that thing out, and we are going to be able to knock out the Bolt Toy as well. So down it goes. Out comes the annoying Goldeen, as I am going to make the pivot out into my Cutie Fly, hoping he doesn't pull the flip turn roll, but unfortunately, you see, he is. And this is really unfortunate, because it's going to put me in range of rocks to where I can't really save this thing right now. I'm not packing Protect, as he does show the Fake Out on his Meowth, so I don't even get some last-ditch chip off, which is, you know, a bit sad, but regardless, it's completely fine. I'm going to go to my Sandshrew. At this point, I'm just going to Rapid Spin. I know this thing can't knock me out, and this is going to give me the speed boost to where I can threaten the rest of his team pretty well, as he does go out into the Picky Peck. And he is going to be able to get the defog off. Unfortunately, I did not have enough speed to outspeed this thing at +1. Maybe that's a bit of an oversight on my part. Would have been really nice to outspeed this thing and potentially either double spin or just knock twice and knock this thing out. And honestly, I think just clean with Sandshrew, which is pretty funny. But unfortunately, we are not going to be able to pick up the KO on this thing, at least this turn, because of the fact that it is going to be able to defog away. I am going to knock off this thing's Life Orb. So it was Life Orb, as we did think it was going to come. And it's unfortunately going to pick me off with a Bullet Seed the turn afterwards, which again, not fun. But we know this thing isn't Scarf. We obviously knocked off its item, and this is going to be a pretty free Farfetch. Now, he doesn't really have the liberty to switch into this thing at this point. Ponyta does not want to take a CC, and he doesn't know if I'm Scarfed or not, and I can pretty easily lock into Scarf knockoff versus his team at this point if I was. And he doesn't have great fighting versus otherwise, but I am going to reveal the quick attack. We're going to pick off the Piggy Peck. And I figured this put me in the best position overall, because I could, you know, pivot around the, you know, Ponyta pretty easily at this point. The Stunky could be really annoying if he does end up going for the high horsepower on the switch, but I do still have my Scarfrillish in the back, because unfortunately, he's going to reveal Sub. Now, this is like worst case scenario versus our team. We don't deal with Sub Pony very well at all, but I do have Sucker plus Crunch, and I at least can click Sucker Punch on this turn right here, you know, expecting him to attack me. If he's Calm Mind, I'm not as scared because he doesn't have any super effective coverage to hit me. The best he can hit me with is Dazzling Gleam, and I know I could take a +1 of those very, very easily. So I'm going to Sucker Punch, guarantee break this thing Sub to put it, you know, in range of our potential Frillish. And he is going to high horsepower. Very unfortunate, and this turn I'm going to make the Crunch play. The reason I make this Crunch play is because TJ's going to make 1 of 2 plays. He's either going to pivot out, obviously wanting to save his points up because it's so good versus us in the end game, or he is going to substitute, trying to catch us going for a Sucker Punch and, you know, put himself in a better position that way. Either way, Crunch covered both plays, and it, you know, didn't allow him to sub completely for free. So we did end up getting a lot of chip on this Meowth because as you're going to see, we are going to be able to get 2 Crunches off as he does Fake Out the first turn. Not going to be able to take us out. We Crunch again. Put this thing pretty low as he is going to Crunch one more time, and the Aftermath is actually going to take him out. And this is awesome because what this is going to do is once we get chip on this Goldeen, we're actually in a pretty good spot to win. This does come down to a bit of a 50-50 on a double down on what he wants to go into right here. I'm going to go Farfetch, expecting him to go Goldeen. Reason I expect him to do so is because if he goes Ponyta and I go Frillish, the game's immediately over because I can just click Shadow Ball. And then I can just kind of continuously click Shadow Ball until the Goldeen is chipped in the range of my Farfetch picking it off, which is obviously really nice. And if he ends up going Ponyta, we're in a pretty tough spot. We can make it to where it doesn't sub down very easily, and we can potentially take a hit from it depending on rolls and things like that. So I'm going to go Farfetch as he does go into his Goldeen, which is amazing, amazing positioning for us. He goes for a flip turn. This is completely fine because all I have to do at this point is just spam knockoff, ensure this thing does not get a substitute up as he does go for his Zen Headbutt, picks me off, but this is going to allow me to go into my Scarfrillish and pick off these last 2 mons with our, very, very weakened Bond, but, a mon that I'm really glad we saved nonetheless. So this is a phenomenal game by TJ. I had a lot of fun playing this one. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, and it's, really had me sweating. First game of brackets, I definitely wouldn't want to go out that way. So great game to him. He's definitely one of my more tough opponents I had to play this entire tour. Very, very good LC player. And I expect, to see a lot more of him in this format going forward. He's doing great in LC Evo. I believe he's in semis right now as of the time I'm recording this. He's done great in Clash as well. So yeah, that's going to be round 1 of brackets. I'll be back with round 2. So for round 2 of brackets, we end up going up against Diet Tight, the number 2 seed in the entire pool of players. Some would say he's even top 25 in the format, so we definitely got our work cut out for us. Jason's been playing a lot more Little Cup lately. He's actually very, very solid, all jokes aside. And I was definitely a little spooked going into this matchup. His team was ridiculous. It was a word that I shouldn't say on YouTube is what I was going to say. But it's a ridiculous team. He's got Libero, Scorbunny, Frillish, Volaby, Mudbray, Meowth, and Togepi. Like, just those mons outside of Togepi, all of them, are ridiculously good. And then Togepi's obviously really, really good low tier value. So I think that's a really, really scary team that Jay got there. I have no idea what this pool was doing. He drafted by himself. So we definitely got our work cut out for us. As for the 6 that we're bringing, we have Cutieflight, we have a EVO Farfetch, we are Swords Dance, we have a SD Piggy Peck. I believe we are Life Orb. It doesn't really show in this game what item we were, but we'll obviously get into that. We were, I believe, Colbur Frillish in order to check that Meowth a little bit better, because Meowth runs us one. And then we were Juice Stunky and Juice Sandshrew. We were Nasty Pawn on our Stunky. We were just Knockoff Spin, Earthquake, Rocks on our Sandshrew, just as a nice general pivot into things like the Scorbunny, into things like the Mudbray, and physical, what do you call it, Volaby we could check, and even a Meowth to a certain extent. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. I am going to lead off with my Frillish because I want to lead well versus a Meowth or a Scorbunny, as either can grab really good momentum versus me or really just put me on the back foot with their wall breaking presence, just immediately. As he does lead Scorbunny, which is really nice. He's going to make the U-turn play, immediately go out into his Frillish. This was a really aggressive play, but a really good play nonetheless. I probably wasn't clicking Shadow Ball there just because he has the Meowth, which can obviously, not be the best pivot, but it's a pivot nonetheless into the Ghost move. And he obviously has the Volaby, which I don't deal with very well at all. So I'm going to, try and not let that thing in for free if at all humanly possible. So unfortunately, he's going to get me there. And going to the Frillish, revealing to be Water Absorb. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pivot play out into Stunky on the Shadow Ball. Unfortunately, he's going to get the Spadef drop. And wanting to keep this thing somewhat healthy, I'm going to pivot around a little bit in order to try and get my juice back on the Stunky and really put a little bit more offensive pressure on Jason. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to pivot right back into Frillish, get my Water Absorb to pop, get back up to full, which is really, really nice. And then I'm going to pivot right back out into Stunky on the Shadow Ball. I know this will actually put me in range of my juice. We're going to pop right back up to full and be in a good spot. Now, the good plays end though, because unfortunately I'm going to go for a Nasty Plot. And looking at the calcs, this definitely wasn't a very good play at the time, just because this thing absolutely chewed. The rest of his team really didn't care. Throwing off a Dark Pulse and engaging damage would have definitely been my better play in this specific instance, but again, not the biggest deal in the world, as I am going to be forced by my Sandshrew, as he does throw off a big EQ, but I do live that pretty easily with my Sandshrew, get my juice, go all the way back up, and I get a pretty free Rocks at this point. Now, instead of knocking off his Volaby, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hard Stunky, because I do expect this thing to be Nasty Ball versus my team, and giving it that free weak armor boost is almost like certain doom at this point in the game. So we are going to go hard Stunkies. He does reveal the Nasty Ball, and it's awesome, so I'm just going to be able to throw some pretty free Sludge Bombs at this point. We actually nab a Poison, which is really nice, and he does knock me out with the Air Slash. So as you can see, if we would have knocked off with our Sandshrew, the game was over at that point. I don't know if we were Sash Q'd or not. I don't think we were, or I probably would have went hard into it potentially. But regardless, Stunky definitely did its job in, at least stopping this thing for now, as we are going to break it down a little bit. As we are going to go Cutie right here, and we could just throw off our webs. At this point, he doesn't have great removal options. It's going to be pretty much just the Volaby, and I don't expect Volaby to be default in this matchup, especially when he had already shown to be Nasty Plot. So it's obviously super, super clutch for us. And right here, I'm going to stay in, get a little bit of Moonblast chip off, because I don't have a great switch into this Frillish, and then from here, I'm going to U-turn on out into my own Frillish, as he is going to throw off a big recover play. But this is completely fine. I'm going to pivot out into my Piggy Peck on the Shadow Ball, as he does end up making the Volaby pivot instead, getting his Berry Juice back, which is completely fine. What I'm going to do right here is I'm going to Swords Dance. The reason I Swords Dance on this play is because I know a Brave Bird won't knock him out, and I don't want to give him that speed boost because my team does not really switch into this thing all too well at the current moment. So what I'm going to do is obviously SD up. I know I'll live one hit of this thing. If it Nasty Plots, then obviously I just outspeed the next turn and I knock it out with a Brave Bird clean for sure, especially revealing that it was juice. As I am going to go for an SD right here. And Jason ends up going for a Dark Pulse. Again, I do chew that pretty well. And from here, I get to claim a KO and go for a Brave Bird against his team. So definitely a really nice trade for me right there in taking out the Volibee. We are down a few Pokemon, but we're not out of the game just yet. As out comes this Togepi. And this thing is really annoying for our team to break without Stunky, as you're going to see. So I'm going to throw off a Moonblast, get a nice 43 off on this thing. Unfortunately, he's going to pick me off with the Dazzling Gleam. Don't have great pivots in this thing at this point, so I am going to let my thing go down. What I'm going to do after this is I'm going to go into Sandshrew. Reason being, I need to knock this thing off in order to have it to a point where I can actually, like, you know, revenge it with a potential Farfetch or anything like that later in the game, which is honestly, obviously, my primary win con at this point, as I am going to go Sandshrew, knock off this Togepi, as I believe it goes for a Soft Foil. This is completely fine, because I can just kind of spam EQ versus it at this point. I'll potentially beat a 1v1 pretty easy, as he is going to make the switch out into Mudbray. Now, I was very, very interested to see this potential play. I think Jason's played this game fine up to this point. He's obviously in a pretty commanding lead. But my train of thought is hoping if I get Chip on this Mudbray, then my Farfetch just wins the game. Like, pretty easily. So, provided I can get said Chip, I'm in a phenomenal spot versus his team. So, I am just going to go for an Earthquake on the switch, obviously. His stamina is going to pop. What I'm going to do right here is just off a knockoff. I'll be able to knock off this thing's Berry Juice, as you'll see. Keeping it to where it'll guaranteed stay low. It's probably not Rest Berry Juice. Not a very good set, as I'm just going to be able to spam EQ until, you know, we drop. And this is going to kind of put him in a position where he's going to have to give up his Mudbray. As I do go for a Spin, just because it'll give me more speed, and it'll forces me out to come in and revenge me. As he is going to go for the Fake Out, reveal to be Life Orb, which is not a good time. Completely fine, though. I'm going to go Farfetch and just throw off a big CC and pick off this Meowth. I claim to kill at that point pretty easily, which is really nice. But this is going to give him a free switch to his Togepi. Unfortunately, I cannot stay in. I cannot knock this thing out with Poison Jab for 76. 77. Despite it having the, not having the EVO, it's still pretty damn bulky. So I am going to pivot out into my Frillish. Glad I do, because he ends up clicking T-Wave. Jason knowing he can tell me with the Yellow Magic. Obviously brought him on his Togepi there, which is unfortunate because he does get the pair right here. But I am going to be able to off Will-O-Wisp, so I want to slowly chip this thing down. I know it can, keep itself somewhat healthy, but if I can Scald it and, try and keep it pretty chipped at this point, I'll be in a pretty good spot. As he is going to make the Nasty Plot play on my recover. Definitely a solid one right there. So at this point, I just kind of have to cut my losses and go for Scalds. Hopefully trying to break this thing down as much as humanly possible. As I go for a recover here, that probably wasn't the best play. I should kind of just cut my loss at this point and just throw off big Scalds. But it's not the biggest deal in the world. I could have gotten lucky. And, gotten really unlucky there and got parried and then got nothing out of it. But I do just end up making the Scald play the next turn, which, again, completely fine. As out comes this Frillish. It's pretty much the only thing that can revenge me at this point. It's going to take me out the Shadow Ball. What this is going to allow me to do is go into my Farfetch, flick Swords Dance, as I know I live anyone hits this thing pretty easily. He does go for a Scald. Does not get the burn. We're going to knock this thing off. We're going to get a crit. That crit didn't matter. It definitely drops to a +2 knockoff. And then from there, Scorbunny is going to come in. If he was like Scarf, like High Jump Kick or something like that, he could have potentially knocked us out from there, which would have been really unfortunate. But hey, you got me. I didn't position myself well against the Scarf Orb in the endgame. But he's going to prove not to be. We're going to knock it out with a +2 CC, and that is going to be the game. Another really close one, showing that the people who did end up making brackets definitely knew what they were doing in this tournament. We're going to just barely snag a win over a top 25 LCU player, so that's obviously really solid in its own right. Great game to die, and we're going to jump on to the next round of the tour. So for top 16, we got matched up against Lord of the Acorn. He's got a very interesting team up to this point. He has a Pawniard, Omanite, Meowth, Bulbasaur, Doduo, and Riolu. So lots of scary offensive threats. His team has kind of just come in and click buttons and hope things work out, which can definitely work out against my team, so we're going to have to position very carefully. Going into this match, we have a SD knockoff close combat quick attack Farfetch, which is a very good lead in this matchup. We have a Sash Cutie Fly with, I believe, Psychic, Moonblast, and Protect, as well as Web, obviously, with the lead. We have a Sub Berry Juice Piggy Peck. We are Bullet Seed, Brick Break, and Brave Bird with the Sub Berry Juice. Obviously, if we sub down enough or if we click Brave Bird enough, we'll be able to pop that right back up, which is really clean. We have a special Nose Pass. It's a very good Doduo check. It's a phenomenal Doduo check, in all honesty, which is really good. It's also going to be a rocker in this game. And I completely forget the Stunky set, but it doesn't really come into play here, so you're going to see. So, going into this one, I am going to lead Farfetch'd. Something I've seen a lot of players do this tour, especially with Omanite. Not even a lot, just the one other dude I saw have Omanite. It might actually have been one of the Acorn. I don't remember if he was the guy in Courage Pool or not, but A lot of them are just leading Sash and clicking smash and just trying to win the game from there. And I actually was in a really bad position if that happened, if I let anything but Farfetch. And Farfetch does really well against a majority of his team, actually. It does. There wasn't a ghost type on this team, so I believe it was actually Steadfast. So if I baited a fake out from the Meowth, that would actually be +1. And from that point, I could kind of just run through my opponent's team. It led well versus Farfetch. It led it led man versus the what do you call it, Bulbasaur, and it led pretty good versus the Riolu. I wasn't super scared of Riolu, but it led pretty well versus it nonetheless. But he does end up leading Farfetch, and what I'm going to do this turn, I'm just going to click Close Combat. If he Sash, or bring him down to Sash, because he does end up being that. He ends up being Sash Weak Armor, which, you know, normally would be pretty scary at this point, but we are packing the Quick Attack as he does click Shell Smash, and we're going to be able to, you know, just Quick Attack, pick that thing off, and be in a good spot. Now, out comes the Riolu. I'm in a pretty good spot. I can go hard Frillish pretty easily. We are colder, so if you want to click Crunch on the prediction, good play by him. But regardless, we're going to be able to switch into this high jump kick, actually. He's going to take a nice clean 50, which is great for us. Now, the switch into Bulbasaur was very telegraphed and very obvious. And what I'm going to do right here is I'm actually going to make a double out into Piggy Peck, expecting said play, as we do end up getting it right. And from here, I have a pretty sweet free sub. I don't think he's going to want to give this to me. It's his only real check to the Cutie Fly up to this point. So I don't think it's a great you know, play by him if he doesn't sing in, as I am going to click Substitute, as he ends up going for Sleep Powder, which is completely fine. This puts me in an amazing position, because as you can see, my opponent's only flying resist on this team up to this point, I guess Omanite was 1-2, but we had Bullet Seed to blow the thing away, is going to be Pawniard, and Pawniard does not take a Brick Break, I'll tell you that right now. So we are going to click Brave Bird, and that's going to do 36, which is completely fine. It doesn't matter, because we're going to click Brick Break the next turn. If he's Scarf, it's fine. We're behind a sub. We're completely safe. Click Sucker. We're completely safe. We're in a good spot. We're going to be able to pick that off. He's going to have to go into his Riolu, proving that he's actually a Choice Scarf Riolu, which is very, very interesting versus our team in particular. But he's going to click Thunder Punch on Scarf, break our sub, but regardless, we're going to be able to click Brave Bird. It's going to bring us into juice range, and we're going to get right back up to full, and we're in a nice 6-3 commanding position really early on in the game. So right here, I'm going to make the free switch out into my Frillish. I don't need it for anything else besides this thing. He makes a good play and goes for the knockoff. This is honestly completely fine. I'm just going to throw off a pretty free Scald. No reason to overplay at this point in the game, as he does end up going hard into the Squirtle. He ends up going for the Leech Seed. I wanted to try and bait him into going for a Sleep Powder. I didn't want to go like hard Cutie or hard anything really, even Stunky, because I don't want to be slept by anything, as he's actually going to end up going for Leech Seed. I do get the Will-O-Wisp off, which is nice chip. And at this point, I don't think he's going to Sleep Powder me. I am going to pivot out into my Cutie Fly, as he ends up going for the Toxic, and this really isn't too big of a deal. It sucks because our Sash will be, you know, permanently broken, but we're going to be able to throw some pretty big hits from here. The Psyche is going to do a lot if he Sludge Bomb his last move. That's very interesting, but I doubt it, if that makes any sense. As right here, I don't have Bug Buzz. If I had Bug Buzz, I definitely would have clicked it, but we are Moonblast, so I can't really click that because it will not knock out the Bulbasaur from that range. And I'm going to be able to shut off another Psychic, as it does a ridiculous amount to the Meowth, which is great. And we're going to get a little Leech back, which is unfortunate. And from here, I am going to pivot out, because even if we do end up protecting on that Fake Out, we're in a pretty bad spot still, because we do die to the next turn of Leech Seed plus Poison after that. If we lose a speed tie or if he's faint, it doesn't really matter anyways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Frillish, and I'm going to sack it off in order to get 2 turns of Life Orb, actually, which is really, really good, as he goes for the Aerial Ace into the knockoff. Down we go, as I'm going to go into my Farfetch right here. He is going to go into his Bulbasaur. I'm going to click Swords Dance. There's nothing the thing could have gone for to knock me out, because I am a pretty bulky set. As he is going to go into this, I just click Knockoff, pick off this thing, and we're in a good spot. Another reason I can go for a pretty free SD right there is because I had revealed Quick Attack, and Quick Attack 100% picked off that thing from 22%. So we're in a pretty good spot. Out comes the Doduo. What I'm going to do is switch out into my Cutie Fly, just trying to sack it off so I get a free switch into Nose Pass. Honestly, completely fine. I'm going to click Protect here, as he does end up faking out. If I can win a potential speed tie versus this guy, we can actually knock this out and seal the game, as we do knock it out, which is really nice. Down goes Cutie Fly, and we're going to be able to go into Nose Pass and wrap this one up in a clean 4-0 game. This is probably one of my better little couple of games I've played in a while. I think we played very aggressively when we needed to. We were very safe when we needed to, and I'm really happy with our performance in this game. And this, you know, seals us for a top 8 performance when we go up against Beardy in the next game. So let's go ahead and jump on into that one. Alright, so here we are with our top 8 game against Beardy. Beardy is a very, very solid LC player. He's a very solid player in general, as I've kind of reiterated with most of the guys I know that I've played in this tour. Brackets was actually very, very challenging. There was a lot of really, really good players going into this, but he is another player with a terrifying team. This is a really, really rough matchup. So let's go ahead and go over it really quick. What I remember, what we brought, the 6 that he has on his screen. So he has an Apom, Carvanha, Coughing, Numel, Magnemite, and Dwebble. While our team consists of a Berry Juice, Farfetch, I believe you're SD. We have an EVO Meowth, a Colbur Frillish, a Life Orb Piggypeck because it rips through his team, a EVO Sandshrew, and a Berry Juice Nasty Plot Stunky. Going into this, biggest threat is going to be that Dwebble. Endgame Dwebble is terrifying for me to deal with. So we have to position ourselves to where we don't lose that thing. Carvanha, I don't have switch-ins to, unfortunately. It's just not something I have on my build. Apom is very, very scary in the endgame, depending, and a set of Numel with the team that we brought in particular can be very scary because we are a more physically defensive Frillish, so we're going to have to be careful about that. But let's go ahead and jump into it. I am going to lead off with my Meowth, as he does lead off with Apom. He's going to start off with Clean Fake Out, at least revealing that he is that, and revealing that he's not Life Orb, which is good information to know. He may be Silk Scarf, he may be Berry Juice, he may even be Eviolite, depending, but we're going to be able to get that information, as I am just going to U-turn. I figure there's no reason for him to ever really stay in, as this is going to give me a free Sandshrew and a free Stealth Rock, which is obviously really nice. So out comes the Coughing. I have a pretty free Frillish right here. It's the only thing on my team that really wants to absorb a burn. I could have gone Stunky as well, but I like keeping health on that thing, as I am going to go Frillish, and I have a very free Skull. In comes the Magnemite, and we are going to nab the burn, which is very, very big and very nice for us because it's going to ensure this thing cannot, sturdy juice up on us ever, which is going to be really clean, as I am going to pull switch out of my Sandshrew, as the game's going really fast, even though I have it on normal, and he's going to make a very good play and go for the Flash. Let's go back really quick. Beardy kind of realized that I do need my Frillish, or I just kind of get shafted by both Apom and Numel. So he makes a very, very good call, knowing I am going to go out into my Sandshrew, or at least try and block the electric move of the Volt Switch, and he's going to be able to clean to it kill me with said Flash Cannon. So not very good for us, unfortunately. I am going to go out of my Farfetch afterwards, just be able to throw off a clean CC. He did not have a switch in a Farfetch at that point in the game, really. He could have gone Coughing potentially, but he didn't really want to risk a knockoff, which I do understand, and I do have great pivots into Coughing at that point. As he's going to go Apom, as I pivot out into my Meowth. He's going to go for a U-turn. Very fast game. As he gets out into his Numel. This is a bit unfortunate, but I do have Fake Out on my Meowth, so this is going to allow me to, gauge some damage on this thing. See that he is not Eviolite, which is good information to know, as he's going to get up his own rocks, which is very, very scary, unfortunately. But right here, I'm going to go into my Frillish. Scald is pretty much no drawback on this team. He has nothing that wants to take a Scald at this point in the game. He's going to go out into the Carvanha, which is great because we're going to nab the burn, and if this thing's physical, we are Colbur Berry, we take nothing from its hit, which is obviously really good, and we can just Giga Drain it on back up because we are packing that as some coverage for this thing. If he's special, we still do live the hit, as he does end up being special. We don't get flinch, thankfully. We take a clean 48 from that because it was Life Orb, so it's a lot of damage. And we're going to be able to Giga Drain, a little bit of that health back and knock out the Carvanha, which is a big threat up to this point. Now, out comes the Apom. Unfortunately, can't really switch out. Don't have a good switch into this thing at this point in the game. As I do get out into my Meowth, what I'm going to do right here is, I believe, just throw off a pretty free U-turn. Out comes the Numel, which is unfortunate because he does reveal to be Juice. He gets it all the way back up to full. But looking at the calcs, being that he is Juice, he drops to a Life Orb Brave Bird. And so does everything else on his team. He has nothing that comes in, takes rocks, and takes a Brave Bird at all. So we are going to go for said Brave Bird. Clean not getting out from 100, showing how ridiculously strong Piggyback can really be. And out comes the Apom. Now again, don't have a good switch into this. I'm just going to let it go down to the knockoff. If you wanted to overplay and there's no other play. He could click normal move and been fine there. But this is going to allow me to get out into my Meowth. Give me a really free Iron Head. Iron Head is pretty much unresisted on his team up to this point. Gets him out into the Coughing, and unfortunately I don't really switch into Coughing super well at this point either. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click Taunt. I don't expect him to, click Fire Move. I expect him to click Willow, as he does end up doing so. And this is going to give me a nice free U-turn out into my Stunky, as he does click Fire Blast. Gets a crit, but we are Juice. And then we're going to get our Nasty Plot up the turn afterwards. After this, I'm just going to go for a Dark Pulse, pick up my KO. Nothing really took it at this point. And out comes the Apom, which is unfortunate. If I was like Rocky Helmet, that would have been awesome. But unfortunately, we are not. He's going to take the Aftermath damage. Not the biggest deal in the world, but it's, helps nonetheless. As right here, I am going to get out into Meowth. He's going to knock off my Eviolite, which is unfortunate. Him getting that chip off is really nice for his Dwebble. But regardless, I'm going to be able to, force him out into that. He does take rocks damage, which is really nice, because depending on his spread, we do knock him out in the post-combat. Right here, I'm just going to Iron Head, because he will not be able to, smash and, even if he's wider, live an Iron Head from our Meowth, which is going to leave us down in a 1v1 situation with our Farfetch. in against his Dwell. Now, looking at the calcs and looking at the spread he gave me after the game, I believe it was rolled pretty heavily in my favor. I believe I had like a 77% chance to knock this thing out in close combat. I think that was by far my best play. I didn't really have a play otherwise. If he was Shell Smash with Aerial Ice, honestly, I just kind of lost the game at this point. But as you're going to see, as I do throw off a big CC, get this thing down to 5%, which is, 1 HP, so we unfortunately just missed out on the KO, and I saw this. Damn, I lose. Like, the game's over, unfortunately. He's actually going to reveal to click Solar Beam. He was Power Herb, and what he's going to do is he's going to click Solar Beam, and he's not going to knock me out, which is interesting. We get our Berry Juice back up to full, and then I'm going to throw off a knock off the next turn and pick up the W. I talked to him after, and he said he thought I would have quick attack, so he just kind of wanted to flex and show the Solar Beam, which is great for us, because that's a dub, and that moves us on to top 4, which is, obviously a really, really good time. We have to go up against Moran, which is, in my opinion, probably the best player in the format at this point in the World Cup draft, so definitely have our work cut out for us. He's been, massacring not only, Clash and other World Cup leagues and stuff like that, but this tour itself. He has a really scary team. But I think we can do it with our squad. Let's go ahead and jump on into our top 4 match. Alright, so here we are with my top 4 game against Moran. He has a very, very scary team. It's going to consist of Rufflet, Larvesta, Phanpy, the Trubbish, the Alola Meowth, and the Grookey. Now, as for the team that we end up bringing, I believe we were an SD Eevee, like Farfetch. We were a Berry Juice Double Dance Piggy, so we were Flame Charge plus SD to potentially try and win the game. It's a really, really good win con in this game, in all honesty. We were a Juice Nose Pass as our rocker, as a good check to, a good majority of the team. I forget the item on the Meowth, but we were just like a 4-attack set. Pretty simple. We were a Nasty Plot Stunky, which was pretty solid in this game, and then we were a Culver Flish. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I am going to lead off with my Galarian Meowth. Pretty good lead against this, opposing Meowth, is we're going to be able to take the Fake out, see that he's not Life Orb, which is good information for us, as I am going to U-turn on the Larvesta. Thankfully, not get Flame Body, which is really nice, and go hard out into Nose Pass, which is a very, very good check to this thing, as he is going to U-turn. Unfortunate, not the biggest deal in the world. Right out into his Rufflet, which was a ginormous dong play by Moran. He knew I was not clicking a rock move. He just knew it, which is absolutely nuts. So he's gonna get me there. And at this point, I'm looking, damn, I'm just in range of CC. If he has it, I gotta pivot out, as he's gonna reveal to just click Defog in my face. So he just he did not care about that Nose Pass at all. He definitely got me there. As I'm gonna go out my Frillish, click a pretty free Ice Beam. And then pivot right back on the Nose Pass. The reason I do so is because I really, really, really want my rocks up in this game. Like, I really want my rocks up in this game. So he's going to Giga Drain. I'm going to be able to take that pretty easy. I did calc that. And then get back up to full, get up my rocks, and be in a pretty good spot. I'm going to go out into my Meowth as he gets up all 3 layers of spikes. And I'm just going to kind of start iron hitting him down, as I see that's unfortunately not a 2-hit KO. And he is faster than me with his Trubbish. So this is kind of a losing battle at this point, as he's just going to be able to spam Recycle. And as he has 16, of these, I'm in a pretty mess spot. I could have, stayed in and done so, but I wanted to get the initiative, go into my Stunky, and try and set up and put a little bit more pressure on his team. As he pivots out into Phanpy, and looking at this, I was like, damn, Phanpy's a lot bulkier than I thought. I never killed it with a +2 Dark Pulse, so I am going to be kind of forced to pivot out, as he is going to go for an Earthquake, which is not good. But in my head, I'm thinking, Bullet Seed. Moran's going to pivot out and Bullet Seed, and I'll be in a good spot, as he's actually going to stay in as I Swords Dance up and just clean knock me out with the Rock Slide. And you're going to see this, this Phanpy is an issue, bro. I haven't actually ever played a Phanpy, but I definitely overlooked it in prep. This thing is, a really big issue, as I'm going to be able to go out in my Frillish. I'm going to take 25 from those spikes, as he does stay and go for a knockoff. Outspeeds me. I'm going to go for an Ice Beam, trying to make a middle ground play into the Grookey, but unfortunately, he's just not going to make that play. He's going to pick up his own Berry Juice, which is not good. Pick me up with the Earthquake, and I get nothing out of that besides losing my Frillish. So, great. I'm going to go into my Farfetch, click Swords Dance right here. I know Earthquake won't knock me out. Earthquake and Ice Shard does not knock me out if it's his 4th move. And this turn, I'm going to be able to just click Close Combat. Unfortunately, not pick up the KO on Trubbish, though. He's going to get it right back up to full. So this is not going too well for your heroes. I'm going to Brave Bird right here. Depending on spread, I can potentially knock him out. Unfortunately, it's just not going to go down like that. He's going to try and Sludge Bomb me. Doesn't work out, as I do come in with my Stunky. And I am just going to throw off a Dark Pulse. It covered the Phanpy wanting to come in on my Nasty Plot again. and put me in a decent spot from there. So it's going to take a good 45 from there. So that my Dark Pulse at +2 would not have knocked it out most likely earlier. And from this point, I don't really switch into Banthy very well. So I'm going to go into my Nose Pass, essentially sack it off at this point. We live that one, but we're not going to outspeed, obviously. And we're going to go down to the next Earthquake. So down goes Nose Pass. And at this point, I'm like, damn, I'm going to go to my Meowth. I hope I'm faster. This thing hits 14 speed, and mine hits 14 speed, and I'm running a decent amount of speed, but he's running more. And down goes Meowth, and then out comes Stunky. Let's go ahead and just speed it up right here. And we're not going to be able to knock it out with our Dark Pulse at all. Not going to get the flinch. Didn't matter because we still lost. And down we go. I got 6-0'd. I have never been 6-0 in Little Cup in my life. You don't often see Little Cup 6-0 just because the game is so offensive and inherently offensive. A lot of the time you can't, pivot correctly in order to keep that 6-0. But Moran just absolutely body bagged me, showing me why he's, an absolute stud in this format. I got out prepped and I got outplayed, unfortunately. Yeah. And once you get to this stage in the tournament, that's kind of what happens, unfortunately, unless you're on the tip top of your game. I definitely didn't put as much effort in this build as I should have. I definitely wasn't as well prepared as I should have against a player of this caliber. So that's 100% on me. We are going to drop out of the tournament in the top 4. We end up getting 4th place overall. There was another game after this where we played Odin for 3rd place, but I honestly threw a team together in 3 minutes and ended up losing that game too. Odin's a really cool dude. I just don't really feel like uploading that because I didn't really even count that as a part of this run. The rest of it I was pretty enthralled and deep into. The other one I was just like, oh shit, I can win $20. Sure, I'll throw together a team really quick. But yeah, I really enjoyed this run. I thought this was a great, very well ran tournament. Moran actually ended up coming in 2nd. Obviously, he lost in finals to Plaz, which is really, really cool. Congrats to them for making it so far and really show them why they're absolute beasts in the format. But I'm really proud of how we played this tour as well. We had some really good wins against some really good players, and we're able to make it in the top 4, which is something I'm really, really proud of. So I, wanted to at least bring this run to you guys and show you what I did right and show you what I, did wrong right here and getting 6-0'd in our top 4 game, which, isn't, my proudest moment, but, it's one of my moments regardless. I think it's important to show these as much as the wins and stuff like that, because these are the games you very much so more learn from than the games that you win, pools very convincingly and stuff like that. So that's going to be our run. That's going to be the entire video. Let me know what you guys thought. I had so much fun playing this, like I said. Definitely join the APA Little Cup server, the APA main showdown server. I'll probably link both in the description below. If you're looking to get into the format, we do a lot in the Little Cup showdown server. We're going to have our seasons coming up in the next DLC. So definitely get in the server, get active, get talking, maybe get in the season. If you are interested in getting into the format, this is something I really want to grow myself. I love Little Cup. I love Little Cup Draft, and I love the traction it's been able to pick up over the last year or so. So definitely jump on the hype train. It's a lot of fun. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like. If you're new here, be sure to drop a sub. And I will see you guys in the next one. Later.